today I'm going to do another episode of reacting to random YouTube videos, and so the first couple have been kind of silly because I react to like one thing and then I go on a whole tangent about it, which is good and fine and part of like the long form posture that I talk about. But you know, it's good as just like a jumping off point. Trying to fit in some of my absolutist philosophy into here too naturally, just how I, things that I discuss. There's a couple movie ideas that I could do. Not that I'll do them this session, but like the What Women Want or whatever, Mel Gibson reading people's minds. That I think I've seen before, but I don't remember it. And I've seen some clips of that lately for some reason. Either it's up to the YouTube algorithm or I click on one and then he keeps suggesting more. And then the Send Help, I do want to watch Sam Raimi. Just because it seems like a premise picture that would go hand in hand with something like The Housemaid, which also might mean it's going to be pretty bad, but I think that's the question you got to ask yourself with The Housemaid. Did it really go anywhere interesting or unexpected with the material, and outside of just maybe the twist that, the wife was planning it the whole time, which is kind of dumb anyway. It's so unnecessarily elaborate, like, I don't know. Even that, like, so what? Then all the other things are cliches. Oh, the guy's actually crazy, even though the wife seems to be crazy, but she's pretending to be crazy, and he's actually crazy, and then the housemaid is actually a criminal. Like, okay, so what? Like, that's my honest reaction to the movie by the end, is like, so what? Like, why do I care about any of this? And the answer is, like, there's nothing really special about it. I don't know. So it takes a basic premise, it does like a little minor twist with it, but that's about it. I mean, the fact that they cheat is kind of irredeemable too for both of them. Like, not that I say, I don't feel bad for Millie, but you are cheating with a guy, and then she is. Like, it's a total unsympathetic clown show every step of the way. She's an ex-killer. She's cheating with the guy, causing the guy to cheat on his wife at least, and then he's cheating on his wife, and then the wife seems crazy. So like, they all have issues, but the least, to be fair, I guess I kind of saw through that a little bit. Not that I knew what the wife was doing necessarily, that she was pretending or whatever, but I didn't feel like her supposed craziness, even if it was real, justified what was going on, right? Like, the cheating or anything else. So that point is fair, right? In fact, I considered her more sympathetic when I thought she was crazy, because it's even more dumb that you're not crazy, but you're putting up with all this BS. Like, the guy makes you pull out your hair and you stay with him and you put up with more abuse and you don't secretly put a camera in. It's less credible in the modern day, although it wouldn't really justify it in the past. Like, accountability and structure determines, human behaviors. Like, if people can get away with something, they'll do it. So they're more likely to be able to get away with it in the woods or in the nature and, whatever. So that's really the strange thing. If you're alone, like, we'll use this maybe as a segue into Send Help, but we're not going to watch it this time. But, like, people living out in nature or something, now it's free, now you might be, so you'll blame that. You'll say, being out alone in nature like that would drive you crazy, you'd go crazy. But what is really being crazy then? That's more in line with your natural self. That's more free. That's more, self-aware, self-actualizing. So it just means, it's not compatible with the rigidly controlled state that you're in society, but people can't admit that that's a rigidly controlled state. In many ways it could be useful, many ways it could be just contrived, but you can't acknowledge that everything you do doesn't even serve a purpose, it's just a way to control you, or you're sacrificing constantly for the subversive collective overextension, which seems to be overcompensated for by the machination process, but you're kind of missing the point, right? It's not about an elevated bread and circuses argument in the modern era because you have greater technology, which the current empirical power structure will take credit for, right? Even though technology exists just on its own, you could say, oh, it helped to bring it about. But what it means is, what it means is you're basically putting yourself in a position to, I don't know. You're putting yourself in a position to somebody's crazy if they're out in nature and whatever. So in other words, society has to consider that crazy or negative to be free and fully in your nature and natural state and element and everything. So it's a bad thing to be free. It's a bad thing to be in your natural state, right? It's a bad thing to be self-sufficient. It's a bad thing to be in control of yourself. It's a bad thing for your life to be consistent in the sense of everything being tied directly to your survival and being in control of that. Those are somehow bad things, right? It's bad to be self-reliant. It's bad to be self-aware. It's bad to be, any of those things. But it's only bad because society wants to try to control you. It's only bad because society doesn't allow you to be free and self-sufficient. It's only bad because, that's not compatible with society, which is constantly trying to control you, right? That you're not allowed to be free, or you're not allowed to do this. Right, so it's like you have to be in this subversive state where you sacrifice and are controlled in so many ways, which, at least if it's accountable, this would be more the absolutist interpretation. Okay, you sacrifice a lot of your inherent nature and capability and freedom, and you sacrifice nature itself and allow a monopoly over nature and everything by corporations and stuff. If you want to argue some functional, convenient basis, which itself is presumed, like, okay, maybe some people, mindless mass of people, accept that because they're lazy and they want convenience or whatever, but that doesn't mean that every individual accepts it, and it also doesn't mean that you just accept it as absolute and unquestionable, and then you ridicule anybody who does question it or think about it because you're so indoctrinated that it triggers your cognitive dissonance. No, it's like everything you're doing or not doing that you could do, you're constantly conceding value, conceding control and all of that power to empirical authority, society structure. You're doing it for a specific reason. So you're saying, okay, I'm sacrificing all of this innate ability and nature and everything for the benefits of society or whatever. So it's a compromise. It's not like, oh, you should be grateful for it or something like that. False inherent contrivance response. It is... it's a choice that you're constantly making. So if you stop making that choice, okay, I don't want the benefit of society anymore, so I'm gonna, sacrifice that to be free. Or, why do so many, I never noticed this, why do so many of these mailboxes look like they've been taken out? Those two in a row were especially fucked up. And that whole road was like, every single mailbox was somehow damaged or missing. The plows must be taking them out or something. But yeah, you're conceding control, so it's within your hands, and it more like would be accountability, right? This is like accountability versus false inherent contrivance response. You're sacrificing the ability to do blank for blank reason, and so you would hold it constantly accountable. Like, oh, I'm sacrificing the ability to live freely and hunt in the woods and fish and stuff for some supposed collective benefit, which is really nothing more than control. But like why would that be a bad thing? Okay, one random dude goes out and fishes and eats the fish and does what, takes care of himself or whatever. Oh, that's somehow against the law and you need permits and you have to do it a certain way. Right, like you're really not hurting anything, especially on an individual basis. But the random individual is the bad guy who's going out, and that's where you realize what it's really about. It's not about protecting anybody. one random dude who goes out in the woods and hunts and fishes and takes care of themselves, that's somehow a bad thing, even though it's really not measurably hurting anybody at all, ever. But it's because he can be free of society and doesn't need it. So society has to use its empirical control in the name of something positive to control things that would be harmless, just because it's a threat to its control. And so it's kind of like, you know, oh, now you're the bad guy, not the corporation that ravages the land every day, not the, you know, people who exploit it and are mass producing and mass scale and mass killing animals and mass everything. Those things are not bad. Oh no, God forbid one person goes out and fends for themselves or does something like that on a small scale. The individual doing something on a small scale freely is bad, but the corporation doing that same thing on a massive scale is somehow good. It's like, oh, they're following all these regulations, but that the individual isn't. Like, oh no, the individual might do something bad, you know, as if the corporations don't, or, you know, or even just, it's always a strange thing, right? Like, it's okay if the corporations do that same thing on a mass scale. Like, one random dude, oh, this guy littered one little thing, and therefore that's bad for the environment, and that's a bad thing. So you're accountable on the individual basis. But when everybody does it, when a big corporation does it on a mass scale, it's polluting the environment, etc., that's okay. So that shows you that, oh, governments and stuff are just the arm of that corporate element. That it's not about whether something is good or bad, it's that the individual, right, will be cast as the villain. Like some random dude doing something minimalistic, living off the land, even outside of society, which itself is damaging. That's somehow a bad thing. That guy will somehow be arrested or trespassed or whatever, right? That random dude living in nature, not hurting anybody, is bad. But the big corporation ravaging, controlling, monopolizing everything, that's somehow good because people are lazy, mindless sheep, and they're, you know, controlled by bread and circuses. So when you just look at that analogy, the villain in your society is a random person not hurting anybody, living on their own, fending for themselves. Just a random guy out in the woods. That's the bad guy. And the good guys are big corporations ravaging the environment or whatever, just exploiting, kind of doing the same thing but on a mass scale. But somehow that's allowable, but the individual, so it's a freedom issue, right? You can't do it on your own, otherwise you might invalidate or compete with them or whatever. So it's this monopoly thing that, oh, they can monopolize it, but you can't even just do it individually. So the same thing that's done on a mass scale is bad if you do it, but it's good if they do it. It's kind of like with wars or with the military or something, right? Not about a specific case, but it's bad if the individual does it, but it's okay if the government does it. And you might think that somehow dress it up and pretend like it's something better, something more, but it's actually just the same process, just to a greater degree. So, oh no, the individual can't have this weapon, certain weapons or whatever, in their house. Okay, we don't trust the individual, but we do trust human beings of the same human nature in government to have tanks and jets and nuclear bombs and stuff like that. We trust them to do that, but we don't trust the individual to have like an assault weapon or whatever. So how does that make any sense? Right? It's still human nature. It's still the same people, but you act like, oh, those people are better somehow. Right? So it becomes a contest of contrivance who can pretend like they're not, you know, that same nature isn't present or elevated by that, you know, like power corrupts kind of thing. So it's a situation where this time I'm maybe not going to react to anything, actually. But yeah, it's elevated bread and circuses. It's the fact that you can't be free. That's not allowed. Again, the individual is somehow the villain. A lot of things you do are only necessary because of a collective mass of people. So on an individual basis, it doesn't serve a purpose. It's not necessary. There's a lot of that, you know, half-mass human function will insist upon this indignant, insistent thing, like this weird social etiquette or whatever. But you could remove social contrivance if you just don't require or desire it. So it's a testament to a state of control where you'd remove the need. As in, if you don't require, desire it, or care about it, then why do you need it? You could do the same thing more efficiently, or, right, it's not necessary except to control people. As in, right, because if you're at peace with what you're doing, or you're doing it as efficiently as possible, or whatever, it's a zero-sum process, there's no need for social contrivance. Right, it's a zero-sum process, just do it, just let it speak for itself, just, it wouldn't be necessary otherwise, but it's a tool to control something in a way that's very selective is the problem too. Right, like certain general things will be used as a barometer of control, like, well, it's in the name of the collective, or like of mass people, but it's selective, like, oh, it's only your mass of people, only your area, only your, non-basic self, not true value for people. Amalgam theory wouldn't even allow for the structure that you're in that's overextended and non-basic self. And then stimuli, acme, preservation is used as a weapon here too, like, oh, we're doing it for our children that we only had because we can't control ourselves and we're horny, hedonistic animals, and we then use that as a some form of righteousness to say, like, oh, we're not doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for our children, even though you didn't have any sense of purpose in the first place. Right, it really becomes a prop to be used to exploit and justify. It really is a weakness. It shows you a lack of value, so you not only preserve the stimuli acme, but then you use it as an excuse or a false reason for something. False meaning. And like this supposed struggle in a half-mass mechanization process, it's like people don't require much, and maybe you don't care even, like you'd be a minimalist, or your lifespan might be reduced by living out in nature or whatever, but it's all for convenience. It's all for, technology, excess, things you don't really need. So this like gratification of zero-sum functionalism is kind of missing, because why would you be gratified by it? It's all for your own zero-sum self-interest, machination process, overextension anyway. It's, there tries to be an attempt at gratification through human collective interest, but it's kind of inconsistent anyway, because it's just a zero-sum process, non-basic self. If you're not getting money for it, there's no true value in the way that amalgam theory would show, because it's very selective. Let's see if the phone overheats this time. Somehow it keeps doing that because it's sitting in the sun, which I might have to get a phone case for it. But yeah, there's like this cultish need to try to gratify the self. That's the ultimate thing. The self tries to fool the collective that, oh, we're doing it for the greater good, whatever. But then the end result is benefit for the self in excess of what somebody who really values human life or whatever would do. Right, your own luxuries, conveniences are what it's about, or whatever, some overcompensation, gratification. And then so it's that pretense of social contrivance. It's like the glue that binds together people in a way that controls them, that's objectively adverse and finite to the same zero-sum end. That if you truly valued people, then, you'd be sacrificing 2 meals a day or more or whatever. So people don't actually care, they just pretend to care, as it reinforces their own selective, dependent, overextended pretense state. And so you are controlled by your possessions and things like that in a half-mass way. It's kind of interesting too that way. If, let's say, you don't want any of those things, but you're forced to pretend like you want them, or like the machination process, modern technology or something, so you're a minimalist, but you're not even allowed to be a minimalist, you'll somehow, that's condemned by society. Like, what if you're more at peace with that? Like you're homeless, or you're sleeping in your car or something like that. You try to be as minimalist as possible, as society allows you to be, but you still are forced to do certain things. Right, so it'll force you or frame you a certain way, like, look at this person, they lack the ability to do this absolute contrivance, not that they could choose something different altogether. So again, it's an artificial tool to control you, but again, the self tries to fool the collective, like, oh no, I'm doing it for the greater good, and then the collective tries to fool the self, oh no, you get something back positive for it. So that social gratification is actually a tool that's used to control you specifically and subversively, because if you take that away, now we can be direct and accountable, and just like, okay, everything's a zero-sum process and let it speak for itself. So the only need of social contrivance is to kind of compete, or to try to specify some inherent process, or to try to, monopolize or reinforce established authority, or try to control people, because otherwise that wouldn't be necessary. So then there'd be no basis of specifying or control. It's a zero-sum process. It's a nearness postulate. Quality or results or actions should speak for themselves. So it's a subversive way that people are controlled that really has no basis to it. Which would be an otherwise inherent process. I guess I won't even watch anything today. I thought I was going to, but everything has to be projected and viewed in a certain way. That's like this worldview preconception that people are already indoctrinated into, and the reason why is because your perspective is impure. So the worst thing people can do is think themselves as being credible, because you're impure on the basis that your perspective is not, this is how people treat it, right? Like a false absolute default state. But they ignore the origin point and take the indoctrination in youth, etc. as absolute, because they don't want to face the cognitive dissonance of it. So the reactionary non-choice basis. So what it means is that basically you think yourself and your perspective is credible, but it's flawed. It's myopic. Your senses are limited. They're used to control you, right? They can be easily deceived, right? Like how people present themselves with appearances. All a person has to do is present themselves a certain way, socially, or to you, or to media, or whatever, and they're perceived well. Behind closed doors, they could be as much of a dick or whatever as they want. So you're not really showing like, this is what a person always is accountably. Behind closed doors, whatever. So you're really saying, how people present themselves is what you're going to reward and treat as an absolute. Even though you're aware of the nature of the process that, behind closed doors, they could be completely different. Or, it's just a front that they're putting on. So that's number one. But number two is also the basis that you have... one side effect is like victims of contrivance want other people to, suffer or struggle just because they did. Like, you're indoctrinated, so they want you to be indoctrinated too, and they want you to struggle against this unsound, unqualified contrivance state, as if to validate it themselves, instead of, again, the finality of an absolutist, where you'd want to remove the need. You're not trying to hold it over heads, or you're not trying to, do anything. you're trying to just let us all be free of contrivance and remove the need for it once and for all, instead of, oh no, I suffered through a greater amount of contrivance than you did, so let's go to World War II Germany and suffer through that contrivance and feel gratified, or let's go to China right now and do that. So that's a greater degree of contrivance that you have to suffer through. So if you take gratification from it, you're kind of reinforcing it and validating it. And then the other aspect is the fact that again, not only are your senses limited, but your impure worldview, in the sense that you're already in a certain situation, so everything you do and see and say is not like, oh, that's a reflection of reality and you're observing. It's a reinforcement. You're looking for confirmation bias, and you're looking for like kind of things that reinforce your worldview. So your perspective and how you see things is not really objective at all. It's just a way like, oh, you have to see it that way because of your lifestyle and something that would reinforce it, or you can't see things a certain way because, oh, that would be inconsistent with your worldview. So your perspective is impure, and so it could also be manipulated that way, where it's not credible. So even like, oh, when people find others relatable or something, we've been exposed to the same indoctrination and contrivance and the same influence and reactionary thing that we didn't choose when you were younger or whatever. So we've been exposed to the same indoctrination. So now we do that. Like, now we act like, oh, look how relatable that is. Right? Even though, why would we take pride in something we didn't choose? So, oh, if we were born in World War II Germany or China right now or whatever, we could relate over being indoctrinated by the same thing, being part of the youth group that, whatever, from Germany, or we could certainly relate over that, but we're relating over things we didn't choose and that we're exposed to that are cast upon us by unqualified empirical authority. Rather than being aware of them and countering them or choosing something else, we're taking pride in it and acting like it's something we desire. And then on the same note, you have the ability to you kind of you try to reinforce something that you didn't choose, and you also you just so there's like this framing of opinions or myopic selective things as absolute, right? Often controlled by, again, the myopic presentation. If something, if people are presented with something constantly, it becomes important. Like the media keeps talking about this one story, so therefore it's important. Or if something isn't presented to them, then I guess it didn't happen. It's not real. And you can't have that awareness of a larger process that, you're aware that things are happening behind closed doors, probably that you would disagree with. So, like the media, the government only presents to you certain things. So you'll freak out about it when it's told to you, but you won't search for it or be aware of it on your own or be skeptical. Everything is perfect until something imperfect is presented to you. You're kind of a mindless sheep who waits and trusts that, right? So, like they would have to tell you. The government would have to tell you, or the media would have to tell you, oh, we're doing something bad for you to believe it. Otherwise, you'll wait and they'll cover it up, or they'll selectively apply it, like what they do in Trump. That, oh, he's bad, but everybody else ever was good. Right? Not that, oh, everybody's bad and they're just picking on him for a certain reason. Right, or even like a machination process, you wed that with yourself and your identity. Like, oh, this modern technology and stuff is absolute, not that it's just a selective temporal kind of thing that, okay, we might be doing it for a certain reason, but it's not absolute, not intrinsic, we could choose something else. Or you need like the fallacy of permission to not do it, or you need like the fallacy of means to justify, like, right, like if you need like an excuse not to socially contrive or overcompensate or something, you need like preconceived notions, dependent over extended pretend zero-sum means. So in other words, it's showing an unqualified state, And so, I don't know. Right, so people favor that sort of false certainty and the myopic framing of something over anything else. And so, yeah, there's like this projection of like control that you're subject to that then is self-fulfilling. Like, what if somebody just genuinely doesn't want anything or doesn't care, or again would be the minimalist? It's hard then to control them, right? You're trying to bait them and lure them with the elevated bread and circuses in the modern era. What if that just doesn't apply? And the stimuli acme is used to control you in a major way that way too. Like, base your whole life around it. That's the meaning of life, is your own inherent hedonistic tendency and desire that's used to control you in a half-mast state. Very insecurely, outwardly insisting, very possessive. So it's really a love for the self, right? Your own pleasure, your own hedonistic pleasure, nature's way of inspiring reproduction is used to control you in a very conspicuous way.